Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where as promised, I got this docked up off camera. I've already moved the fuel on over. So we're actually completely done with the refueling. And at this point we have roughly a third of a tank-ish, like a quarter to a third once this oxidizer is burned, of liquid fuel in these tanks. Now I've enabled fuel crossfeed out here, but I think that means that it's going to draw evenly from these 3 tanks and these 4 tanks out here. Well, the 16 tanks out here. So that's definitely not exactly what we want it to do. We want it to draw from out here first. We'll see if that ends up happening. But judging by what we're seeing here, I'm guessing it won't. First step here is definitely to release our advanced grabbing unit. We're done with this. This does not need to be here anymore. So that's out of here. The next thing that I'd like to do is actually make a small modification down here. So we're going to have timbre EVA. All hatches are obstructed. What? Obscure is in here. Oh, okay. Got it. Hello, pause menu. So, where is timbre actually at? Are you in here? Yes. Yes, you are. Okay, so we're going to transfer you. There we go. And then we're going to transfer timbre on over. There we go. And now timbre can EVA. Fantastic. Okay, so we're going to let go. And I want to do a little bit of work down at this end. Specifically, what I want to do right now is ditch the fins. We don't need them. They are unnecessary weight. And to be clear, I think we have enough delta V to not do this. That was not what I intended to have happen. Okay. Let's get that under control. Well, that was definitely a little crackeny. In fact, our best bet here would be to do a quick physics warp. And then we'll head back over to timbre. There we go. And we'll get caught up over here. Cool. That's a bit of a Kraken drive going on there. No doubt about that one. Okay. So now we're back. And we've got that largely under control. I think it tried to reattach it rather than putting it out in space. I think that was the problem. I intended to detach and just put it in space. Like this. Cool. So that's all I wanted to do for the time being. We're just detaching those fins. They are now completely and utterly useless. They are now space junk. Perfect. So we're going to hop back in here. And grab right on. There we go. And hop in. Cool. So from here, we can see we have quite a lot of delta V on here. Now, these engines are going to be useless. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to do our flyby of the moon. So we'll go ahead and set that as our target for the moment. 1.4 degree ascending node. Okay, we'll take a look at whether we need to actually change that. I'm not so sure that we do. Yeah, it looks like we'll be okay on that front, I think. That is an encounter. Eventually, anyway. But this is a much better encounter out over here. Okay, so this is very, very likely an impact trajectory, isn't it? Oh yeah, that's definitely an impact trajectory. So we're going to need to work on that, and I really... Is this inclination good or bad? I don't know, we're not getting a preview out over here. Actually, that might be fairly similar to Dres's inclination. That might be a good thing. We'll see. So for the time being, of course, we need to slightly back off on this. And this is not exactly what we want either, so we need to change our timing to be more like here. Oof. We don't want that radial necessarily. Okay. So that's an escape trajectory there. That is 5 kilometers up. Let's back that off a little bit. That's 116, but that is not quite an escape trajectory. We can definitely dial that in to be about here-ish. It needs to go a little bit further. Okay, that's reasonably safe right there. Cool. So we will prepare for that burn. And of course, we've got this extra oxidizer here. Oxidizer is very heavy. We definitely want to burn that off. But then once we do, these mainsails are useless, right? So we'll need to ditch the mainsails at that point. This is going to be a little bit awkward because of the variable thrust to weight. 2.3, 2.64? That doesn't feel right. 0.24. That feels more like it. So we should thrust limit this down to like 10%, right? 1.78 at 9%. So we need to get all of these down to about the same amount. 0.21. That's about right. Fantastic. So we'll prepare for that burn. And that's just to have equalized thrust to weight over the entire burn, or approximately equalized thrust to weight over the entire burn. So we're going to commence that shortly. We're warping on forward here, and we're going to commence our burn in about 1 minute. Actually, we should be physics warping. We're slightly off on our heading. There we go. Much better. Cool. So we'll commence this burn in about 10 seconds here. 5, 2, 1, mark. Excellent. We're keeping our thrust to weight very low here. So we should obviously be physics warping this. This is going to be a very long burn, right? No doubt about that. This section of the burn is going to be burned out sooner than 80 seconds, I think. Well, actually, maybe not. 60 seconds now. 50. 40. 30. Yeah. So we're burning out our oxidizer, right? That's the main thing that we're burning here. Then, this was intended to fire the nuclear engine. I'm just going to activate it manually because I don't want to lose all of this fuel out here. But I want to check. Okay, we are actually burning from the outside in. I expected it to draw evenly, but I'm glad to see that it's not. Cool. So that's looking good. And we can actually shut down these engines. They are completely irrelevant. There we go. Beautiful. So that's looking good. We've got about 6 minutes left in this burn, right? It's a very lengthy burn, but we're not touching our center core fuel. We've got lots of fuel here. Lots and lots of fuel. Our delta V is quite high. Our thrust to weight ratio is a little on the low end. So this will be fine, but we've got about 400 more meters per second to burn here. But this is looking decent. After we're done with this burn, we're going to go ditch our mainsails. They are unnecessary weight at this point. But I want this burn to be over before we do that. The question is, are we going to burn out the fuel in these tanks? And the answer is no. We're definitely not. We're definitely not going to burn out these tanks just yet. So, in the future, having decouplers here would likely be good. If we're going to do a concept similar to this for going further in the system. Which I think this is a decent concept, all things considered. We've got about 180 meters per second left to do here. Make that 160. So about a 2-minute burn. And that's looking good thus far. Excellent. About a minute and a half. Minute 20. 100 meters per second to go. Cool. We're basically burning directly at the moon right now, but we're going to be overshooting and burning out over this way shortly. 60 meters per second to go. So this is looking about right. Excellent. 30 seconds left in this burn. So I'll be wrapping it up here shortly. 20 more seconds. Another 10 seconds left in the burn. So I'm going to come out of physics warp here. Well, that's interesting. We appear to have massively overshot. Well, the maneuver is apparently inaccurate. We'll just push out beyond the system here and get escape velocity this way. This isn't ideal, but it'll work. There we go. Problem solved. That's definitely a little strange, but it's fine. Timber goes ahead and EVAs at this point. We are coasting, and we are going to go detach those mainsails. They are dead weight. Again, in future, if we're going to adopt this model going forward, then we're going to be looking to put decouplers down here, so that we don't have to come down here and manually detach these. Can we not? Oh, I guess these might be too heavy to manually detach. Max part mass is no limit. But yeah, I think they're too big. Sad. I was hoping to manually detach them, but we'll just have to carry them with us. Again, decouplers in the future. This is still better than not having the fuel in those side tanks, so it'll be fine. We'll grab back on and hop back in. Sad that we can't get rid of it, but it is what it is. So at this point, we should warp out over to here. Cool. This is now showing that we are not going to exit. What is happening with this orbit? It changed when we started the warp. Okay, that is bizarre. Let's head around to prograde. Utterly bizarre what's going on here. That's two things that should not have happened. Like, in terms of physics. Okay. Well, let's just position here. We can chalk up the first one to the maneuver node being wrong for some reason. But this one? Not so much. Not so much. That's very strange. But it probably has something to do with the physics system, like the physics prediction system, getting messed up by us changing things around on orbit. Is I'm guessing what's going on there. So we're just pushing prograde here at this point. All we're looking to do is push this apoapsis up until we escape. This is not the most efficient time to do this. That's for sure. But we should be pretty close to escape velocity as is. In theory. Only a few delta V should be the difference. Well, we know that it's out over here, but at this point, I'm just thinking about the best way to burn this. It's definitely not to burn prograde like this. This is not the best way to do it. A radial burn of 246 meters per second, that direction, or 300 this direction. Alternatively, we can just bring this around, right? And at the periapsis, do another burn here. This would be the best way to do it, I think. Although it's got this encounter, which makes things awkward. Makes things very awkward. If only the game had done what it said it was going to. That would be nice. But if we were to bring this around at this point and push it out like that, that would be the way to go, right? That would definitely be the way to go. We've already burned more fuel than we needed to on this. So let's prepare for this. I mean, we've got a decent amount left over in these side tanks, so it's not the biggest of deals. But let's just warp on around. This was a very awkward escape from Kerbal. That's for sure. Incredibly awkward. And I blame the fact that our projections were wrong. Okay, let's go. So we're going to warp this on around, and hopefully this one will be correct this time. It should be. It absolutely should be. So we've got about 17 days to warp here. We're only warping at 10,000 time, which means that this could be a little bit lengthy of a warp. But we are beginning to accelerate on up here, and we're essentially going to slingshot around Kerbal here, but adding in a periapsis burn. This is definitely going to be the most efficient way to do this, and what I should have done from the beginning of this particular maneuver. But it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I wanted to raise up the periapsis a little bit anyway, so that we didn't have that encounter, because the encounter was making things awkward. So we're going to commence this burn in a few seconds here. 30 seconds, 20, 10, 2, 1, mark. And off we go. We'll physics warp this burn and just get out of here that little bit faster. If we overshoot this a bit, that's fine. Cool. Now we should actually be on an escape trajectory, right? Yes. Now we're still on an escape trajectory when we warp. Good. So, from here, of course, we need to set Dres as our target. 5-degree ascending. Okay. Our inclination is actually kind of decent, if I recall correctly. We need to go this direction. Yep, we definitely saved a little bit due to our inclination. Not as much as we could have, I think, if we had properly gotten the slingshot maneuver, but whatever. It's not the end of the world. This is why we overbuild. Excellent. So this burn is going to start in about 100 days here. Let me just get into position and we'll begin that warp. 100 days isn't that long of a warp. But the actual burn time is almost 9 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the recording here and we'll be back close to the end of that burn. See you guys in a bit. Okay, here we are, close to the end of the burn, as promised. We're also nearly out of fuel in our side tanks. I've been keeping an eye on this, and that's a good thing. So we're going to cut this burn in about 210. There we go. This should be good enough. We've got a tiny amount of fuel left in these side tanks. Absolutely tiny. Okay, so that's fine. Our inclination is now 0.0, and now, of course, we need to do an intercept. The question is, when do we want to do this intercept? Around the descending node? Not exactly. Pulling this back, our timing is probably not the best. That's usually the case when we just kind of YOLO it. But we're going to head on out over this direction. Actually, this is not tremendously bad. I don't want this alarm. Get out of here. Get out of here. Okay. So this is not tremendously bad in terms of timing. Realistically. That's decent. What does that encounter look like? I mean, it's not ideal. We should definitely try to dial it in a little bit. Okay. Bringing this up and in slightly. It's going to be a big braking burn. I can tell you that right now. We're going to have a big differential in our speed. We know that, and we've budgeted for it, so it should be fine. This should be okay. We'll get aligned for this burn, and the burn itself is going to be very lengthy, and it's going to be starting in 371 days. So that's going to be a while. Of course, we're going to run out of fuel in these side tanks very quickly in that burn. We've got 13 meters per second, or 8 seconds of burn left there. Let's go ahead and begin our warp. We're in physics warp. Let's go ahead and begin our warp here. And we'll go through the first little bit of this burn on camera. We'll do the separation and such. But once we get into the main meat of the burn, I'm probably going to pause it again until we're close to the end of the burn. It's going to be a lengthy one yet again. This is a 13-minute burn, and our breaking burn is going to be similar. So that's definitely something to consider. How much is our breaking burn going to be if we do this? Oh, that's only 1,200. That's actually 800 less than I assumed. That's not so bad. Okay, I like it. So this is a substantially better encounter than our previous one. Cool. We'll take it. We'll definitely take it. So we've got about 100 more days left on this warp. And we're almost right on the target right now. Dres is like exactly this direction. 60 more days to go. 50. 40. 30. 20. 10. Cool. So we've got about 1 minute now until our burn here. I'm expecting this to require, what, 2 activations of the staging system? Hopefully it doesn't break. I'm going to quick save here just in case the staging system breaks. I don't think it will, but we'll commence this burn now. Excellent. This should require 2 stages. Correct. There we go. So we leave those tanks behind. They are now completely dry. And keep in mind, if we wanted to send up another, 2 refueling missions, we could have filled those up to full in terms of their liquid fuel. So that's definitely something to consider. Is that this thing could have quite a bit more range than it actually did. So that's good to know. We're going to go into physics warp. This is going to be a lengthy burn, like I said. It's going to be about another 12 minutes of this burn. So we're going to go ahead and pause here, and we'll come back near the end of the burn. We're going to have to do our breaking burn as well. It's going to be a whole thing. It's going to be a whole thing. Actually, right now, let's go ahead and set up... Well, it gets kind of broken because we don't hit this exactly. So we'll wait. We'll come back near the end of this burn and set up our breaking burn. See you in a bit again. Okay, and here we are near the end of our breaking burn. I realized that I should probably use fade to black for those transitions. That's probably going to be helpful. So we'll do that in the future. But for the time being, we're going to continue to head on forward here on this burn. We'll come out of physics warp. We've got about 30 meters per second to go, and we'll need to look to dial this on in, right? So that'll be fine. 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. Interesting. I think... Let's flip this around. I saw something I liked there. We're pulling this back around to retrograde. We're going to have to be very, very cautious with this. We don't care about this anymore. That's irrelevant. Okay, so we're coming back around to retrograde. We're just pulling this on in. Specifically, what I liked is that this is curving. See that? So I'm going to thrust limit this down to 0.5% for right now. We need to be doing very fine maneuvers. Yeah, see how that's curving? I like it. We're going to take this down to about 50 kilometers. Interesting that that's going up with the throttle at 0. Now it's kind of fluctuating. Just based on SAS? I don't know what that is. But this should be fine. So now we're going to set up a braking burn here. Realistically, this should be more of a circularization. Now, this is going to take most of our remaining nuclear fuel. We knew this. But we have a little bit left over. and that's exactly what we're angling for. We actually wouldn't quite have had enough to do our maneuvers with the nuclear engine previously, and we would have had to do some of them with this landing delta V, but the gravity on Dres is low enough that I was going to be okay with that. But realistically, this better encounter is much better. Much better. So that looks good. That burn is going to be in about a year, and we can do that warp mostly off camera. So I'm going to go ahead and get that started. It is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll get the actual landing on Dres done next episode. We're going to be doing more and more of these condensed, cut-down flights as this gets longer, and as we go out further and further. That's just going to be the nature of how this is going to have to be, I think. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Kentuin, James, Shadowwolf, Mlohan80, Kentogan, Nix Marty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Spartan News, Unisol, Rogue Corvid, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.